Hey everybody, welcome back to American Government and Politics. Welcome back to my garage, and thank you for tuning into this video. Thank you all for indicating that you saw last week's video. I appreciate that. And things are going to start moving very quickly because we don't have too much time left in the semester. Here's how it's going to work. I'm a little behind. I've been behind for a while on these videos, and I apologize for that. But you all have done a great job kind of keeping pace and doing the work to make sure that I'm doing my job as well. So thank you for that. But it's going to move quickly. I'm going to post this video today, and at the end of this video is going to be a quiz. Later in the week, I'm going to post another video, and of course I'll email you all and let you know the video is up, and there'll be another quiz on that one. And then next week we're going to wrap up a lot of this stuff, and we're going to talk about our final exam, and I'll make that assignment sometime next week, because I've got to get it done and get those grades in pretty quickly to the administration. So again, I know summer semesters move quickly, and in these very unusual times, I want to thank you all for keeping pace and keeping up with the material. So that being said, I get my chair just right. All right. That being said, I want to talk about the influence of money and special interest in politics and why that's important. You may have heard the term special interest group, and you may have heard about a profession, a type of people called lobbyists. Now, this is something on which I'm pretty qualified to speak because I am a lobbyist. I've been a lobbyist as my quote-unquote day job, my full-time job, since about 2014, and it continues to be a big part of what I do for a living up to this day. So, what are special interest? Special interest is a broad term the media likes to use to describe groups from outside of government that have an influence on government policy and government decisions. An example, well, there are many examples, but perhaps one of the most visible examples would be the NRA, the National Rifle Association. That's a nonprofit group, so it's not a business, but they represent the interest of gun manufacturers and different types of people involved in the gun and ammunition manufacturing and sales industry. They also have a membership base that are made up of individual people who believe in maintaining the right to bear arms in this country and have a pretty expansive view of what it means to have the right to possess firearms in the United States. Another example would be any major religious organization. Those groups have had influence on politics, well, since the beginning of time. As long as there's been religion has influenced the government and politics. So how does one do that? How does a group have influence over government when the government is supposed to be made up of, in this country, where we have a Republican representative form of government, it's supposed to be made up of people who represent the public. The government in this country is theoretically made up of the people, by the people and for the people. Does it always work that way? No, but that's the way it's supposed to work. So, what does an interest group do to have influence? There are a number of ways. First and foremost, they can work to get people elected into Congress, into the General Assembly in Frankfurt, into mayoral offices and governor's mansions and the White House, who share the views of the interest group. An example of that would be Kentucky's previous governor, Matt Bevin. He is a religious man, and so is the current Kentucky governor, Andy Beshear. Both have a long history of attending church regularly, and they take their kids to church, and they read the Bible, etc., etc. But in the case of former governor Matt Bevin, he believed that his religious principles should at times dictate his government decision-making, which is only human nature to believe that when you think something is absolutely right and you're in a position to have influence over other people, you should try to use those principles that you believe are right and you believe are good to help others. But we have this Constitution, you see, and in the Constitution, there is an implied separation of church and state. The separation of church and government activities is not actually verbatim in the Constitution, but you can extrapolate it from the words of the Constitution. From the words of the Constitution, you can extrapolate. So, is it right that a politician's religious views and the churches and religious advocacy organizations that have the same views as that politician, is it right they should have influence on government? Depends on who you ask. It's a very difficult question to answer. Americans in general, historically, we like to talk about a separation of church and state, but then politicians like to pander to religious people to get their votes whenever they're up for re-election. It's a complicated issue. But I want to get into something that's even more complicated in some ways and less complicated in other ways, and that is the influence of money on politics. This is where lobbyists come in. Some lobbyists, like me, work for 501c3, or what are more commonly known as charitable organizations, and try to influence government policy, government decision-making, laws, policies that impact all of you and me and my friends and family and everyone in this country, but do it with a relatively small budget and do it without a whole lot of money to spend on influencing politics. That's the kind of lobbyist I am. But lobbyists for groups like the National Rifle Association, lobbyists for groups like the defense industry, the corporations that make the instruments of war, lobbyists for large banks, and other large financial institutions. They have, it's like a small army of lobbyists. What is a lobbyist? It's an individual who is paid to influence politicians. So, let's say you work for a bank. You're a vice president of a big bank like Chase or U.S. Bank, and you think that Congress and or the president are about to pass a law that's going to hurt your business. How do you stop that? Do you fly to Washington and try to talk to all 535 members of Congress? Probably not. You have a job to do. It's not really your job to do that. You have other things you have to do every day. Sounds time-consuming and it sounds expensive. So how are you going to influence these people, these politicians? The answer is you pay someone else to do it for you. That's where lobbyists come in. That's what a lobbyist does. And those large banks and other large corporations, they have lobbying. They pay lobbying firms the way some people pay law firms on a retainer to handle their long-term business. That's what a large corporate entity will do with a lobbying firm. They'll hire a firm of lobbyists, maybe in Frankfurt for state issues in Kentucky, or Indianapolis for state issues in Indiana, or infamously, lobbying firms in Washington, D.C. And what do those firms do? They have relationships with politicians. They have relationships with them. And lobbyists usually just get the job by being able to contact politicians very quickly and being able to get the ear of the politician to listen to them make the case for their client's position on legislation. That's what a lobbyist does. It's a very controversial part of our system, but I have learned through being a lobbyist for several years now that government doesn't function without them, because another role lobbyists plays is making sure that legislators, politicians, are informed on the issues. There's so many bills they have to vote on. We talked before about how a bill becomes law. Well, there's so many of those they have to vote on and make decisions on that they've got too many things at once to hold in their brain and try to understand these complex issues all at the same time. So a good lobbyist can play the role of educating them. A wealthy lobbyist plays the role of convincing politicians to do whatever the lobbyist client wants them to do. So that was a very brief overview of how that part of the system works. I don't think we're going to have time during this summer semester, but if we do, I can explain a little bit more about how money influences politics, about how corporate money and the money of wealthy Americans flows into the campaigns of politicians in the running for office, and how politicians become indebted to those people and then owe them favors. And it's a complex system because there are laws in place that are supposed to prevent that from happening, but they don't. They do not. There's a reason that wealthy corporations and wealthy individuals have more influence over politicians than regular folks. All right, with that, I need to assign a quiz. This quiz is going to draw heavily on the material from the lecture I posted a few days ago, the previous one. And I will restate this in the email to you. It's very simple, very straightforward. But if you have any questions, email me, text me anytime. This is the quiz. Choose one of the two major political parties in the United States. Pick an issue that has political significance in the United States today, and then explain to me which side of that issue, the party that you chose for your answer, agrees with. What is that party's position on the issue, in your own words, and tell me why. So, pick one of the two parties, either Republican or Democrat. Then pick an issue, and then explain to me, in your own words, why the party you chose for your answer, explain to me how they feel about that issue, and then explain to me why they feel that way. Let me, and I keep stammering my explanation here, but let me give you an example. Now, don't use this exact answer. You can use this issue, but put it in your own words. I mean, if you copy what I'm getting ready to say, I'll know, because these are my words. So, for example, I might choose the issue of firearms and the Second Amendment to the Constitution. I might choose the Republican Party. And I might say, Republican Party tends to be in favor of the rights of Americans to own as many guns as they want. And then I need to explain why. And my explanation for that would be, people who are politically conservative tend to be part of a culture based around gun ownership in this country. And the special interest groups like the National Rifle Association and gun manufacturers have historically provided support for Republican politicians in the running for office, financial support and organizational support. And then once those folks get elected, they owe something in return. That's how I would explain that. But I'll type this out, the quiz question out in my email much more clearly than I've been able to say it on here, but I'll get that to you. Don't forget to post in the comments below that you watched the video. And that quiz is due no later than Monday of next week. Monday of next week. And I'm going to start doubling up these assignments soon to make sure we get all the assignments done and that we get the final exam done on time. So, but for now, this quiz is due on Monday. If I were you, I'd get it done early to make sure you have time for this and any other classes you're taking as you get close to your final exams. That's a pretty straightforward quiz, and I'll type it in the email. Don't forget to comment below you watched the video. Thank you all for watching, and stay safe out there.